Hello and welcome back to God Told Me to Do It podcast. This is episode 9, guys. We are one away from season 1 being a wrap. Can you believe it? 10 episodes in almost. That is wild. But I want to say thank you guys so much for supporting this endeavor, this task, this thing that God told me to do um, at a point in my life where it was like, "Really? You want me to give up even more?" But, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful that I was obedient in heeding that word and doing this because it has truly blessed me and helped me to grow, even in such a short amount of period of time. I've gained so much more knowledge about myself. And one of the topics that we'll be talking about today is capacity. I'm learning my capacity. I bring this up because last night I went to a class with the women's group at my church, and our pastor, his name is Dr. Michael J.T. Fisher of Greater Zion Baptist Church in Compton. He, gave a demonstration about just capacity, and he used these cups. He had 3 different size cups. One was large, medium, and then small, right? And so he kept filling the smaller cup up, and he was saying, "No matter how much you fill this cup, there's gonna be a point where it can't take anymore and it'll overflow. You can continue to pour, but it's gonna run over." Then he said, "You can try to get more contents in by warping the cup, bending the cup, but then you run the risk of damaging the cup." But he mentioned something in particular. He was just like, "Do you know your capacity? Do you know exactly how much you can take? Do you know what you need to be refilled? Do you take that time intentionally to refill?" You know? And so he was just asking a lot of rhetorical questions surrounding this topic. And I thought about it and I said, "You know what? I'm currently going through this." Many of you may know because I think I mentioned it a couple episodes back, but I was doing some restructuring in regards to the day and the time that I record these podcasts for you guys because I saw that the original day that I was recording these, which was Sunday, was just a bit much for me. But the number one red flag is that I felt it impacted my family. And being that your home and your family is your first ministry, I did not want this, how can I put it? This call from God to impede, you know, the family that He's called me to? So I decided I can't do my podcast on Sundays because one, I'm in church early in the morning. By the end of church service, I'm wiped for one. I use my church service to refill. Like that is my I'll say my second or third day during the week where I'm truly intentional about refilling my cup, right? But to get filled up on a Sunday and then immediately pour by doing this podcast is wild. On top of after the podcast session wraps, I then had a studio session that I was going to for music with one of my good friends after that, which will be around 4 p.m. till sometime after 10 p.m. So my Sunday, I'm gone. I'm out the house from 9:15 in the morning, and I'm not coming home till close to 11 o'clock, sometimes 11:30 at night. And it just wasn't sitting well with me, especially with me being away from my husband and my children all day, and that being one of the only days that all of us as a family can commune and be together. So I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna do the podcast on Sundays anymore." Then I had to have the hard conversation with my best friend and say, "Hey, with where I am and where God is calling me to right now, I am not able to give by coming to the studio on Sundays anymore either. And I don't know when I will be able to continue with that, if at all. Like, I'm going to have to change the way in which I submit music to you guys, all of those things, because my family has to come first. And I'm realizing that I just don't have the capacity to do this on a Sunday, especially at the top of the week. On a Monday, I need to be there for my children. I
Mhm.
need to make sure that I'm up bright and early, taking my daughter to school, getting her there on time. And so I think the conversation around capacity can get really tricky, but if you just do the hard work in recognizing, what you can and cannot do, being honest with yourself for one, so that way you're able to be honest with others, and then you're able to manage expectations. How do you feel about that?
Well, there's always that fear of like disappointing people. You know what I mean? When
Yes.
you make those commitments, because it's part of like having a good first impression. You want people to see you as competent, as dependable,
Yes.
and then so you're going to say yes to a lot of stuff. And I
Right.
think it's a mistake we make too when we're young, but it's something you sort of have to go through and learn that eventually you got to get to the point where you got to look at yourself and go, well, I can't do these things,
Right.
but in between there, you have this stage where you won't tell people you can't do it. You just start screwing up because you
Right.
just you want to keep saying yes, but then you don't have the capacity. So then you start giving up other things in your whole life. Sort of does this whole
Mhm.
topple thing. It's funny. I found this image here.
Let me see.
Let me show you on the screen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it sort of feels like that, where you just
Exactly.
you just can't, you just can't because your cup just overflows, and so um you got to get to the point where you have enough. I don't know. I don't know if you call it strength or whatever in yourself to say, listen, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say no. And
Yes.
you can't have that fear of disappointing other people because ultimately the things you do commit to will be better.
Right. And
Yeah.
so this goes back to a couple of things. I went to a conference at my church called the Pivot Conference. It was the inaugural Pivot Conference by my pastor once again. And he had a doctor come on a panel. Her name was Dr. Joy. Can't remember her last name right now. But she talked about this very thing about capacity and how people need to honor your no, because that way, when you do say yes, they know that you're coming as your best.
Absolutely.
And I was like, you know what? It's funny how you have people that will ridicule your no and just want you in spite of like how you feel. And I feel like it just shows how much they truly value you. It really means they just wanna get whatever they can get out of you, and they
Mhm.
don't really care how much you're running yourself ragged,
Right.
in the process, and so those are the people that definitely deserve the no. You know what I mean? And probably an indefinite no,
Yeah.
because you don't value what I have, my capacity, and what I desire to bring. So yeah, just thinking about the entire capacity situation, I realized that on Sundays they need to be dedicated to simply church and family for me.
Yeah.
No other work. I can, plug the podcast in sometime during the week while my children are at school, while they're asleep, you know what I mean? And it doesn't even like, affect what it is that I want to do with them. And so I was like, okay, there's some things that I can do, but one thing that I still struggle with is rest,
Yeah.
because I'm still continuing to plug all of these, what's the word I want to use? Responsibilities, if you will, into the open spaces or what appears to be open spaces in my life.
Spaces that are supposed to be sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes, or, the day can get, sometimes the day just goes.
Yeah.
And then by the time you do have downtime, it's late, and so you have to push through, and one thing for me as a woman, and it's specifically as a Black woman, I am tired of having to push through,
Mm.
and I believe that society tends to look at us as more strong, and the moment you say out loud, "Hey, I need a break. Hey, I'm tired. Hey, I can't do that. I can't give right now," then you're looked at as weak.
Yeah.
When it's really a superpower when you can say, "Hey, I know how big my cup is. I know how much I can take. I realize that I'm starting to, I'm about to be running on empty, and I need to take a moment to step back and just refill." Um, it actually happened to me this past week. I texted a good friend of mine that was on a podcast named Adrian, and I just realized I was snappy. I just noticed that I was snappy, and I wasn't doing it towards anyone,
Mhm.
but I felt lost in my own mind. I felt unsettled in my body. I felt anxious. I felt frustrated, and I didn't have a root cause. Nothing triggered it. And so I texted her. I said, "Hey, Adrian, I don't know what's happening. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I don't understand why. Nothing really happened. I'm trying to read and study, but I can't stay focused. I prayed about it, of course, but that didn't make me feel better. What's happening?" And you know what she said?
What?
Go to sleep.
Oh.
Go to sleep. And I'm thinking like I need some sort of deep reason as to
Yeah,
why this is all
yeah,
happening.
yeah,
She said, "Lay down and go to sleep." And I said, "But I can't right now because the baby." And tell your husband you need to take a nap and go to sleep. I didn't even respond to her because I was upset that that was how simplistic her
yeah, you
answer
didn't get your
was.
deep
I didn't even answer her right away. But I went and told my husband, I said, "I'm frustrated right now. I don't understand why. I really need to take a nap. Is it possible for me to do that?" He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Sure, go ahead. Like, I got it. No worries." And I lay down and I don't even remember even closing my eyes. That's how quickly I fell asleep.
Yeah.
I ended up waking up about 5 hours later and I felt so refreshed. I woke up, the house wasn't burned down, my children were fine, my husband was great, and I just remember being like, "Wow, just 5 hours of sleep cured my anxiousness or anxiety. It cured my frustration,
Mhm.
and I was able to be a bit more settled and be able to kinda structure how I wanted the rest of my evening to go." So I was able to get to my reading and my studying. I was able to complete all the things that I needed to get done, and all it took was to take a step back and to just stop. It just reminds me of that scripture, "Be still and know that I'm God." Like, you don't have to constantly be in, what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like every bit of my time needs to be productive.
Right.
But some of the most productive things you can do for yourself is to just stop
Yeah,
and recalibrate. You know what I mean?
absolutely. And sometimes with sleep, at the very least, it resets your mind so you can think about things the right way. Because I found that
Mhm.
sometimes if I'm starting to go through a mood or something, you see for a few days you're either anxious or upset or whatever,
Yes.
and you really start to think about it. Usually, I'm having a flashback from a trauma that happened a year ago. And
Wow.
maybe it's something like the time of year, the smells in the air, things you're doing
Mm.
that brings back that memory subconsciously, but then it's acting on your conscious mind and affecting how you think and feel. And it happens to me all the
Interesting.
time. And then once you recognize that's what's happening, then that's when it sort of tends to go away. But
Mhm.
until then, you're just sort of acting like, what's going on with me? So it's sort of crazy.
You know what? It's interesting that you say that because I kinda go through that type of feeling around my birthday, which
Yeah.
starts in September, and it lasts through the end of the year.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, it's like September,
Oh,
October,
I thought your
November,
birthday
December.
lasts through the end of the year.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Because we have a tendency as we get older to
Oh,
stretch our
celebrate them.
birthday out.
Yeah. I mean, I am gonna celebrate the whole month, but
So am I. Mine is in September as
oh,
well.
nice. What day?
Last day,
Oh, your
30th.
last day. Okay, I'm the
Mhm.
14th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I feel as though around my birthday time, right before it starts, I start thinking like, oh, I'm not where I thought I would be a
Yeah.
year, a year from now. Last year during this time, I thought that I would do X, Y, and Z or accomplish this. I just started ruminating on, the past, where I feel I should be. And then October, November, December is almost like a seasonal depression for me.
Mm.
Um, like I thoroughly enjoy the rainy weather and the cold and all of that. I think for me, it's the holiday celebrations
Yeah.
because I'm reminded of just how much family we've lost and them not being present.
Right.
And now that I'm getting older, I truly appreciate and value just family and us wanting to be together. And because on my mom's side, the family is very small, and then on my father's side, my family is very large, but we aren't close.
Right.
I'm constantly searching for ways that our family can do things and be together and really bond. But because of everyone's schedules, everyone's like, well, we got this going on, or one pocket of the family has their plans, but they're
Yeah.
not. And it just doesn't feel like the holidays to me.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out how to implement some traditions for my family.
That's where you have to start. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking for this thing, kinda like what my pastor said. You look for things from people that can't give them to you, but the whole time you have people in your life that are giving you exactly what it is that you need, and you're not even acknowledging it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right, and so I think that's where I am with that. Like, I need to stop looking for, particular pockets of my family to fulfill a need, and I need to create that with the family that I'm creating with my husband and my 2 children, you know?
Yeah. Because think about it. I mean, just how you have memories of how those traditions were created, your
Yes.
kids are going to get those memories from you.
Right.
So it's up to you now to start creating those traditions. Like in my house, we get refrigerator magnets every time we go to visit someplace. So that was
Mhm.
a tradition. Or on Christmas, we all had stockings and I'd fill them with just stupid little toys.
Mhm.
And so every Christmas, we would all have to play with the stupid little toys together,
Right.
just to make a tradition out of things so that your kids have something to remember too.
Exactly. I think I've been way too hard on myself on what all of that is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been giving too much power to the actual tradition and wanting to do it exactly how it was done versus like, no, you have the power to create your own.
Yeah.
So it can be whatever you want it to be, how big or how small. And I'm more of a sentimental, like small things person. So yeah, I'm gonna sit and meditate on that and
Yeah.
figure out what I want that to be for my children
Yeah.
and
Start
my
with
husband.
start with some of the things that you've been doing inherently over the last few years and just see if you can sort of embed those and use that as a foundation for the traditions you're going to create.
Right. Well, you know what's hilarious? We can get into this too. Christmases have been pretty tight for the last few
Yeah.
years. um, but you know what? I'm grateful to God. I'm actually not even worried about it this time around because
Hmm.
God is indeed a provider. Like I wouldn't have even done this podcast had I solely depended on what it is that I could do. I
Right.
thoroughly decided that I would wait on God, wait on the Lord to show me exactly how to execute this. And so I'm grateful that money, having it or not having it, is no longer a stronghold for me. But I do notice that when I have, I want to go big. And when I don't have, that's when I get in my bag about being sentimental and making what I have stretch and making it more about the experience and the memory versus the actual item. But when it comes to provision, I can't I'm always in my head about, well, I can't do it like that, so I won't do it at all.
Yeah.
I'm that type of person in my life, period, though. Whether it's money, whether it's working out. I just had to tell myself a couple of weeks ago, if I can't get to the gym, that doesn't mean that I just don't work out at all.
Right.
And so I started walking. And as much as it bothers me that it's like, "Oh my god, I'm just walking a mile or 2 a day, that's it," when I'm used to going to the gym for an hour and a half and lifting my weights and doing the sauna
Yeah.
after. And it's like God had to remind me, like, it's okay to crawl before you walk.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get down to the bare bones and rebuild your foundation. And that is more than okay and more than enough. And when it's time to graduate, then you will do that too. Um, but yeah, I need to get out of that mindset of like, if I can't do it the way I want to do it, or if I can't do it grandiose how I want to do it,
Yeah.
that I just won't do it at all.
Yeah, it's just like what we were talking about before we came on camera, just you can't prioritize everything at the same time.
Mhm.
Even when you're juggling, some balls are up in the air and some are down,
Mhm.
because it's just a constant cycle. So sometimes you can only concentrate on a certain thing at one time. And, that's
Mhm.
how it has to be. And it's funny, I have the same thing because, I bought all this expensive gym equipment. It fills half my garage. And it's like,
Mm.
I don't have time to get out there. And then you start seeing these extras. Oh, you can work out just by 5 minutes a day in your office. I'm like, I'm
Right.
not doing that. I spent
Right.
all this money on all this equipment.
Exactly.
So then you end up not doing anything,
That
because it's like
not
I
doing
got to do it
anything.
my way. So I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and then it's like you believe that you're gonna get the results faster by doing this whole routine, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, you get results by becoming consistent, by becoming disciplined. So, I'm glad to even say like, "Hey, I didn't get to the gym every day, but I've been consistent for the past about week and a half with just moving my body, just walking." I was
Right.
able to get to the gym, I think, twice in the past week, which is great because it would have been nothing at all. No walking, no gym, no anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just interesting how these are kind of all the things that I think about and go through while on my spiritual journey. And it may seem like they're not related, but it all comes together. It is all related for sure because when it comes to flexing your spiritual muscle, you have to become disciplined and consistent. You know what I mean? The Bible is constantly talking about being obedient and being disciplined in different areas of your life. I'm finding that prayer is a non-negotiable for me now.
Okay.
And when I miss it top of the morning, I really do feel off kilter. So, I have to get myself quickly out of that mindset of I didn't get to do it how I like to do it in the morning, and I will drop everything that I'm doing in the moment to just say a quick prayer, even if it's not the ideal way that I wanted to get it done. Because if I just continue with my day, it's almost like it just unravels. It just unravels, and I'm constantly focused on the next task, the next task, the next task. And before you know it, the day is gone. I've accomplished some things, but what's the word I'm looking for? I don't feel like I showed up as my best
Mm.
while accomplishing those things, you know? So, yeah, it's just, it can all snowball, but prayer for me this season is a non negotiable. I thoroughly enjoy waking up before anybody in the house is up and it's super quiet. It's still dark inside the house. I like praying in the dark because it gives that whole scripture of like go into your prayer closet, shut the door behind you and speak with God and really have that intimate time. I need that for me cuz for some reason when it's light out, I don't know, it just does something for my psyche where I'm like I don't feel as if I can focus.
Yeah, I mean, your whole brain chemistry changes because it's conditioned now to sort of bring in all of these external,
Mhm.
experiences. Whereas when you're in the dark, it's more internal. It's more,
Mhm.
focused on you inside. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'll just go in my living room while everyone's still asleep. I'll get down on my knees. I'll begin my prayer. I'll say the Lord's Prayer or an iteration of that with my own words. And I'll typically end it with, like, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And I'll just sit there and just be quiet. And that's when I get all of the incoming information of whatever it is that God either wants me to pray about, bring to my attention, or speak on to share with someone in or share with the church or share with people in particular, whoever comes up. And it's almost as if once I'm able to do that and set the tone, then the rest of my day just feels like it goes smoothly.
Mm.
I don't know how to explain it, but it just goes really smoothly. Like, do you have a prayer routine, or are you more of like a go with the flow, or I'll do it when it comes to me? How do you
Well,
operate?
my version of the dark living room is go someplace outside of my normal sphere of influence. So I'll go down to the harbor where I can sit and look out at the water,
Mm,
right? So this is not someplace where I normally work or normally, conduct business or at home. And so that's my way of breaking away. And so then at that time, I just sort of talk to God. And I'm pretty just colloquial, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Um, and, uh, and one of the things I've tried to institute recently is I try to integrate praying for someone else.
mhm.
So I'll think of somebody who I think needs something or whatever, and I'll say, God, if it's your will, can you, give them this, give them that, or
Yes.
whatever. And, I feel like that's helped make my prayers more fulfilling for me
Mhm.
as well, because you don't constantly feel like you're just asking for stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's my routine. I don't do it regularly, I mean, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but sometimes I just sort of say, well, God, I trust that I'm on your path and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And,
Mhm.
and you'll let me know one way or another,
Right. Hey,
if
I
I'm
mean,
doing it
that's a
right.
whole different level of trust. You're
Yeah,
like, "You'll let me know if I'm veering off," right?
exactly.
I feel like a couple episodes back, I talked about the importance of prayer and how my prayers shifted from, being self-serving to, serving others
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
because, I found that, praying for others and then me repenting for my shortcomings, that's what I pray more about than anything. Um, and that is I never thought that I would be in that type of position because I've never felt convicted enough in my life to feel like, "Oh God, I really want you to, like, forgive me for this."
Right.
Which is sad to say and admit out loud, but I honestly didn't have the awareness, over the years to feel like anything that I was doing was wrong. But since surrendering in my car in April, it was as if I said this on my Instagram recently. It was as if this urgency and this fire was literally implanted in my heart, and it just began to, like, turn it, and realign it to where it should be.
Mm,
So now it's the smallest thing, whether it's me snapping on my husband or my daughter or an interaction I had with someone out in public, I immediately feel convicted and bad if it happens, and I immediately repent.
mm,
And I've never done that my entire 30 plus years being on this planet. So that's how I know for a fact that Jesus is real and that um obedience is indeed better than sacrifice. I used to hear that all the time in church and I didn't understand it. But I totally get it now because when we want things, we are quick to say, I'll give up this, I'll stop doing this. God, if you do this for me, then, I'll quit X, Y, and Z. But the whole time, God just wants to know you. He just wants to get to know you. He wants you to spend time with him. He wants you to learn his character. He already knows you. So it's like, why not spend that intimate time with God and then allow him to reveal the plans that he predestined for you before you were even knit in your mother's womb? You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so I think if we just be still and put ourselves in a position to hear from God and not just talk at God and request things from God, that we will be pleasantly surprised of just how vast his love and his knowledge and his kindness is for us. And that will turn our hearts to make us want to obey versus sacrificing simply because we want to get something out of it. The main thing that we should be getting out of our relationship with Jesus is the fact that we get to commune and be in relationship with Jesus.
Mm.
He's already given us the air, the breath in our lungs. He created our body. He created who we were to be on this planet. Like, and then he in turn gave his life for us because we are just a sinful people with a sinful nature. So, how dare we ask for even more? Now, we can ask and we will receive, but only if you surrender fully and you are in obedience according to the will that he has for your life, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where I am with it. That's where I get my peace now in knowing that I'm doing exactly what it is God called me to do right now. And if one day that looks like me, serving at my church and recording the podcast and being there for my family and my husband, and then another time it looks like me taking a season to just relax and recalibrate and to refill my cup so that way I'm able to show up as my best self as
Yeah.
a representative of Christ here on earth. That's what it means to be a Christian, right? Like, why not take the time to do that? Which is a great segue because,
Uh-oh.
like I mentioned before in the beginning, this is episode 9 of the podcast, and we are recording our last episode next week to complete our very first season. If you had a hand clap sound, that would be amazing. Right? So
There it is.
there it is. I swear, next time, I feel like I want to have the little table so I can push the buttons myself
Oh,
too,
I could
because
give you that anytime you want.
I know you can. It was
Yeah.
just I'd be so focused. I wouldn't be able to do it all at once. My
No.
capacity, you know? But yeah, so we're gonna be recording the last episode of season 1 of God Told Me to Do It, the podcast next week. And I wanted to just ask if you are open to it. If you guys want to be contributors to the production of season 2 of this podcast, I am posting my Zelle on the screen for you. This is my business Zelle. This will go to my business account. Okay. We do things on the up and up here. And yes, make sure if you would like to donate to the production of season 2 of the podcast, my Zelle is on the screen right now. And please make sure if you do donate, put your name or whatever nickname you like to be called, because I would like to credit you in the credits of season 2 as well, as a contributor to the show. So yes, if you feel so led, please do so at your convenience. I'm not putting a cap or a time limit on when or how you can donate. If you don't have Zelle and you would like to help us out another way, feel free to contact me via this email address and we can figure that out. And yeah, I think we're pretty good. I think
Okay.
I'm good on this one. And it's only a little short, little 30-minute bite.
33 minutes.
Not bad. But yes, thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 9 of God Told Me to Do It, the podcast. And I'm gonna give you a sneak peek of episode 10 because it's only right that I end the season with one of my biggest supporters. I say one of because God is the ultimate, but my husband will be joining me on the last episode, and I'm so looking forward to spending time with him and for you to glean some wisdom
I've
from
heard
him.
so much about this man that I have never
I
seen.
know.
I start to doubt he was real for a minute.
Right? Which is hilarious because he's always like, "I can't wait to meet this mystery man." So, yes, he will be here in the flesh, next week with me, and we're just gonna talk about, our marriage, doing life, growing together, our children, and all the things, and he's just such a wise, beautiful human being from the inside out, and I can't wait for you guys to meet him. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something from this. If anything, be still, take a break, get your rest, recalibrate. You stepping away doesn't mean that you are not progressing. Because some of the most progress you can make is to take a step back so you're able to attack whatever it is that you are trying to put into the earth with intention and with care and showing up as your best self, right? So yeah, peace out. Love you guys with the love of the Lord.